All right, let's get right into this explainer. We are unpacking a highly relatable, incredibly fascinating, and honestly kind of frustrating human experience today. We're diving deep into the psychology of the unquiet mind. If you've ever felt like your brain just totally goes rogue the second the sun sets, and counting sheep just turns into a stressful math problem, you are absolutely in the right place.
I want you to picture this. You've had a ridiculously long day. You are just completely wiped out, physically exhausted. All you want in the world is to sleep. But the absolute second your head hits that pillow, bam. It's like someone cranked the volume dial in your brain all the way up to max. Instead of drifting off, it's suddenly 2 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, and you're completely trapped in this wide-awake state that just refuses to shut down.
So let's really dive into this, because think about what your brain is actually doing in these moments. It's basically dragging you through a worst hits highlight reel. All of a sudden, you're replaying old conversations, you're endlessly stressing over future problems, or, my personal favorite, out of nowhere you're cringing at some super embarrassing memory from literally 5 years ago. You just want to sleep, but instead your brain is like, hey, let's run through 50 what-if scenarios until the sun comes up. What does this actually happen?
Well, answering that requires a major psychological pivot. We have to realize this is so much more than just a noisy mind.
You see, to an outsider, or honestly, even to yourself, lying awake at night like that just seems like a really annoying bad habit, right? Like a glitch in your brain. But the reality is actually pretty mind-blowing. Psychology reveals that overthinking isn't a glitch at all. It's actually a hidden internal mechanism for self-protection. Your brain is actively trying to solve problems it simply hasn't had the chance to process yet. Let's peel back the layers of how this works.
Let's start with layer 1, the absence of distractions.
Think about your typical day. Your mind is constantly occupied. You've got your phone, your job, conversations, the literal everyday noise of the world. And all of that acts as this massive filter that essentially pushes down deeper, unprocessed emotions. But at night, when the noise finally stops, that barrier completely vanishes. Without all those daytime distractions weighing them down, those suppressed thoughts naturally bubble straight to the surface.
So, psychologically speaking, you aren't actually thinking more at night. Fun fact, your brain's default mode network just kind of takes the wheel whenever you stop doing active tasks. You're simply finally hearing yourself. Your brain finally has the absolute quiet it desperately needs to process the thoughts you were just way too busy to listen to all day long.
Moving right along to layer 2, the illusion of psychological control.
Here's the thing about the human brain. It intensely dislikes uncertainty. It is hardwired to crave predictability and security. So when you're laying there, overthinking a future problem or agonizing over a past mistake, your mind is actually mentally rehearsing scenarios. It wants to feel prepared. Your brain literally believes that if it just mulls over a situation enough times, it can magically prevent something bad from happening or somehow fix a past error. Psychologists call this a false attempt at control. Your subconscious actually chooses the boring, repetitive cycle of overthinking because, to your brain, that feels so much safer than just facing an uncertain, uncontrollable future.
Now, layer 3 dives into social survival and meaning.
I am almost certain everyone watching this explainer has had these exact thoughts running on a loop at some point. Wait, did I sound awkward just then? Or do they secretly dislike me? We all overthink social interactions. But why does this happen? Psychologically, it's because humans deeply associate social connection with emotional safety. And on the flip side, our brains process social rejection exactly like intense physical pain.
So when you're replaying a totally normal lunchtime conversation at midnight, your brain isn't just trying to torture you, it is actively scanning for patterns. It's looking for any tiny hint of disapproval or any subtle mistakes you might have made. This intense mental analysis, it's pure self-protection. Your mind is desperately trying to make sure you haven't broken a social connection that is quite literally vital to your survival and your sense of belonging.
Which brings us to layer 4, the deep feeler. Some brains are just naturally wired to constantly search for the why behind everything. Deep feelers, or people who are incredibly fast learners, they don't just collect basic facts. They pay very close attention to extremely subtle signals. We're talking a slight shift in someone's tone, a tiny micro-expression, a sudden change in attitude. And their minds use these clues to build really complex mental models to understand the whole picture. But this constant context building leads straight to overthinking. The mind is furiously trying to connect all these separate little signals into one perfectly clear pattern. So for deep feelers, replaying a moment at night isn't just worrying, it's a profound internal search for meaning.
And that leads us to our final underlying cause, layer 5, the perfectionism trap.
People with perfectionistic tendencies hold themselves to, frankly, impossible standards. And there's a crucial distinction here. When a perfectionist makes an error, they don't just look at the action and think, oh, I made a mistake. Instead, they internalize it right to their core. They think, I am a mistake. They literally attach the failure directly to who they are as a person.
And because of that deep identity attachment, it creates this state of constant mental checking. Even when your physical body is utterly exhausted and crying out for rest, your brain stays locked in problem-solving mode. Why? Because the emotional cost of being wrong just feels unimaginably high. The mind keeps overthinking as a frantic way to prove its own worth, or to somehow fix what it perceives as its fundamental flaws.
So how do we reframe this? Because remember, your brain is actually working for you.
Overthinking is not a sign that your mind is broken. It's absolutely not a character flaw. It's actually a sign that your brain is hyper-aware, and it's furiously trying to protect your inner world. Once you recognize that your mind is just desperately searching for safety and meaning in a pretty chaotic world, you can actually start to process those patterns. You can observe the thoughts without letting them completely wreck your peace. Your brain is essentially working overtime on your behalf. It really just needs a little guidance to know when it's finally time to clock out. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Knowing everything we've just unpacked today, knowing that your mind is simply trying its absolute hardest to protect you, how will you treat your unquiet mind tonight? Are you going to fight it? Or will you listen to what it's trying to resolve? If you enjoyed diving deep into the hidden psychology of everyday life like this, make sure to subscribe, because once you start understanding these fascinating little things that shape us, you'll start noticing patterns everywhere that most people completely overlook. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.